Why I don't tithe at church. Let's talk about it. Why I don't pay tithes in church. Aside from the whole falling away from the church thing, the church has become almost powerless to solve its problems. It seems like the church is just following the world, whatever the world wants to do, whatever's popular in society. That's what the church leans toward. It's more political than it is spiritual, whether it's guns in church or whether it's the single mother issue that has run our black churches rampant. Single mothers all over the church, and the church seems to be fine with hanging on to the women. Where are the men, and why don't the men want to come to the church? Because the men can see the game, the men can see the con, and so therefore you keep the men and the women separated because the men don't want to see some guy running a con on him, so he don't go to church, and therefore all those single women are there by themselves. Why can't you get the men and the women together? Why can't the church be honest? Why can't the church uplift the community and have marriages the way they used to? Remember, the church was the place to find a good woman. What happened to that? Why do men not think that these days? Or could it be that the rate of divorce among pastors is just as high as it is with us regular guys? So the pastor is divorced as well. Why can't he hang on to his wife? What's going on in the life of the pastor, or pastors in general, or Christians in general? Because the divorce rate among Christians is just as high as everybody else. What's going on? What makes this pastor, what puts him in a position to be tithed? Why should he be tithed? Why should we give him our money? What is the church's responsibility to the community? Are we starting businesses in our communities with all the money we give to the church? 10%. If you go to a church 5 or 10 or 15 years, how much money have you given to that church? What has that church done in the community to support the fact that you're giving them money? Is the church just a business itself? If you look at the bigger churches, their biggest thing is private schools and daycares. So you go to the church, you pay the church to watch your kids or whatever the situation is. They're just a business themselves. How many people have approached the church, especially in the black community? How many of us have approached the church and said, I'd like to start a business? How many black churches have given interest-free loans to their members to start businesses? I'd like to know. Does your church give interest-free loans to start businesses? Let me know. Tell me about it. Because I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it at all. What is the church and the pastor doing that it commands our money? Simply because he has a storefront? Simply because he has a fancy title? Simply because he wants your money? Is that good enough for this man or this woman to be tithed? When are we going to stop playing these games? Pay your tithes. Will a man rob God? It's going to take a lot more than that to get me to start paying tithes in a church. Listen, let me tell you something about that. Will a man rob God? They only say that part of the verse, but they never read any of the passages above that where it says, you Pharisees, you priests. He's talking about the men of God, the preachers, robbing God because they're collecting the money and they're not doing what they're supposed to do with it. What about it? If you kept your own money and you tithe to yourself 10%, you could end up with a down payment on a house. You could invest that money into your business. You could invest that money into your retirement. You could help your wife accomplish her goals. What is the role of the church? How are they helping you accomplish your goal? Simply because somebody preaches on Sunday is not enough. These preachers need to understand that they need to do a lot more than that. Our communities have fallen off the grid. Our black women have fallen off the grid. Our young people are falling off the grid. And you think that we should tithe you. Why? What for? Man of God, why? You couldn't hold on to your wife. Why should I tithe you? Your house is in no better condition than anybody else's in the church. Why should you be tithed? Why should you tithe someone who's got a gun in a church? Why? He don't believe in God and security and safety in the church no more than anybody else. Where are the marriages that are supposed to happen in the church? Am I the only one that believes this? I'd like to know what everybody else thinks. I'm sick of it. Tithing. Will a man rob God? You got your tithes, you got your tithes. I met a guy that I used to go to his church. And he said, man, your business sure looks like it's doing well. Yeah. He said, who you tithing? Who you giving your tithes to? I said, the bank. And he had a fit. Told me I turned my back on God. As if that's possible. I turned my back on God. Will a man rob God? And I told him, don't even go there with me. It's going to take a lot more than will a man rob God. What have you done spiritually for me? I don't have a church home. I'm not a member of your church. Why should I tithe you? For what? Why? What reason? Just because you want my money? No. When I go out and do my job, I know why my customers pay me. My customers know why they pay me. Do you actually know why you tithe your pastor? What is he doing? When is the last time that pastor been to your house? Does the pastor even know where you live? When is the pastor the last time he visited your children? Does he even know your children's names? Is your pastor married or divorced? Does your pastor come to church with a gun? Does your pastor believe fully in the safety of the Lord? The truth and Almighty God will protect him? Or does he have a pistol to protect him? Is his church a business? All of this stuff is important. As I said, am I the only one who thinks this? I'd like to know in the comments what everybody else thinks. But to think that you're supposed to be tithed just because you have a church, to me, is wrong. That is in fact robbing God. That is not only robbing God, it's robbing and fleecing the sheep who come to you for guidance. There's also a situation where a young man told me his lights were off. He went to church and told the pastor he didn't have money to pay tithes because he had to pay his light bill. And the pastor told him he should trust God and give the money. And he did. And his lights went out. And he had to have his lights off for 2 weeks until he waited for another payday. And he came to me and asked me if I could help him with the light bill until his payday. I went to the pastor and told him, you know, this young man's lights are off. He's 23 years old and he's got a 1-year-old child and they got no lights. The pastor said, trust God. I said, no, he needs a friend, buddy. He don't need you. I'm going to pay this light bill for him, but stop telling him that. It's not helping. Why the heck would you have a 23-year-old young man with a 1-year-old child with no lights because you think he should pay tithes? His responsibility is to his wife. This is the kind of foolishness that just makes you want to pull your hair out when you hear it. This is why I have no respect for preachers who just want your money. Churches with ATMs in it. It's all about the Benjis. Jesus left these churches a long time ago if he was ever in them in the first place to start. There are so many storefront churches going on now because everybody's trying to get your money. It's really sad.